everyone, to Agencies Talk, our weekly talk show hosted by digital marketer president Mark DeGrasse. This is his chance to sit down with agency professionals and talk about what's going on in their world, how they tackle common agency pain points, and the amazing things they're up to. Today, we are joined by Casey Stanton. Casey is a #1 Wall Street Journal bestselling author and the founder of CMOx, the premier fractional CMO training and matchmaking company. He has served as fractional CMO for leading companies across multiple niches, helping them scale their profit and impact. He now supports marketers committed to solving bigger problems and helps them build their fractional CMO practice. Now, I know we're excited to get started, so let's kick it over to our host, Mark.
Welcome, Casey. So I guess
Mark,
it's been a while
since
since we met. I was just looking for your podcast episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was December of last year. I'm gonna put that
a minute ago. Yeah.
Man. Yeah. Well, then I kept on. I'm like, God, I gotta get back to Casey. So I'm very happy you made it and didn't blackball me from having you on stuff. It's been a busy year, but
Totally,
how's it gone for you?
Well, thank you for having me. Excited to be here. Life's great, man. It's I'll tell you today, touch and go. My wife is just about ready to pop. We're gonna have our second baby here. Like,
wow,
any minute now, it kind of feels like, but probably on Tuesday. So,
good for you.
Just squeezing in one last call, I think, before I'm gonna take a little bit of time.
I have 2 as well, and I was like, man, 2 is when it gets real, and then you decide
prepared.
whether you want more.
Yeah, right. We just did the car seat thing yesterday, and it's like, oh, we have an SUV, and like, oh, actually, this is
so much more
pretty tight.
stuff. Yeah. You start to realize like there's not enough room on the planet once you have 2 children, just because that's the amount of stuff you need. Congratulations. The business wise though, how's agency life?
Yeah, so it's great. So just a quick backstory for everyone. So for years, I worked inside of an agency, just a traditional marketing agency. Did all sorts of fun stuff, more technical leaning. And I was kind of the marketing guy that added that kind of layer of effectiveness to the technology that was built. So the whole team could build out a really great Salesforce org or deploy Infusionsoft or whatever, but they didn't have like the marketing understanding. So I brought a lot of that in and I ran that for a while and just kind of got a little kind of burnt out from the labor and the effort and like the hourly billing. And it just was just a zap. So a few years back, I left the agency and I started doing consulting. And then I figured out that consulting was like this revolving door of like, you consult for 2 or 3 months and then you're done with your bag of tricks. And then you got to move on to the next client. And my income would be really great for a month and then really bad for like 2 months. And it was like a constant cycle. My girlfriend and I were thinking about getting married and then having a family, which we ultimately did. And you just can't build a family on that kind of that life. I love a product launch. I think they're a ton of fun. And as everyone here, I'm sure is aware, a product launch means that you don't work you work all night, you work all weekend, you're eating pizza at your desk. It's tough. And then once it's over, like there's just like not much to show for it. You have like an accolade that you can put on your website. Maybe you can mention it to someone, but it's not like you have a recurring revenue stream that's generated because you served a client. So I found that work to be really exhausting. So I started doing consulting, and then I realized I needed to get deeper and have longer term relationships. And I kind of figured out that was fractional CMO work. So then I started working with clients as a fractional CMO, and clients that would stick around with me for a year, 2 years, 3 years, that kind of thing, until I was done with them and could move on. And they paid me the high rates that I was charging in consulting, but with consistency. So that made all the difference. And I've a couple of years ago, it's like 2 years, like maybe next week, I've been working with a firm as their CMO I started with them. They were a $500 million private equity firm. And now in 2 years, we're at 1.5 billion. So we tacked on $1 billion in assets over the last 2 years.
That's a win.
Yeah, man. And it's just full steam ahead, super fun. Just feel really kind of blessed to be in a position to serve that company and then share that information with, other people. Cause I think this fractional CMO stuff is, I don't know, man, it's great. It's a lot of fun. It pays really well. I feel like I stay intellectually stimulated. It kind of covers all the bases for me.
That's fantastic. Well, just for people, I'm sure we all know what fractional CMO here is, but how would you kind of summarize it really quick?
Yeah. So it's the CMO. I think of it as the CMO. So what does the CMO do? And I think the first thing that they do is that they're the marketing leader. So there's leadership that's needed in a marketing department. I remember feeling like a little weird getting into a company that had like a marketing director, but maybe that marketing director just like wasn't leading with strategy or didn't have the confidence of the executive team. And as a result, like they couldn't push their initiatives, or they didn't even have initiatives to push. And they were playing that marketing bingo where, you know, the team's doing everything. They're doing webinars and podcasts. They've got a book, they've got Facebook ads, Google ads. They're trying to push to YouTube ads. They're doing everything, but they're doing nothing with like the focused efficiency of really pushing the business forward. So then the executive is like, why isn't the business moving forward? And the CM or the marketing director is like, we're doing everything. You know, I'm doing everything you asked, but there's no one that's pushing back on the executive and saying, this is what we have to do. So I think the CMO does that kind of at their highest and best. They're hiring, they're firing, they're training, they're mentoring, they're leading. And then a fractional CMO just does that for multiple companies.
Yeah, I love it. That's actually a really good definition. And I think when you hear Ryan talk about it, he always says that the head of marketing isn't necessarily the CMO, because the CMO has, you know, as a chief, you have, you know, to report to the board, report to, you know, the executives, pull all the numbers, like aggregate the data, manage a department. And that's actually really distracting from a marketing strategy perspective. Like it's very easy to get into the operations and then be like, oh crap, what was our campaign? It doesn't matter. We're working. So right. I think the outside perspective of a fractional CMO actually has more power to do the job than an internal one. Now,
oh, that's a good point.
Well, yeah, and you did mention the working with the executive team or the CEO. Like how do you have some best practices in terms of managing that person? Because a lot of people get bogged down with just taking orders from somebody who shouldn't give them necessarily.
Yeah, and I think there's so much personal development in this role, like for the individual, right? Like you can be a graphic designer and kind of just take orders, right? You can be an ad person and just take orders, but you can't be a CMO and just take orders. You got to be confident in your direction. I mean, there's a lot to it. So I think that you have to take the problems that the business has and then put them in front of you and then walk around them every single day, every single week, every single quarter, and look for all the possible ways to solve them and be able to defend your ultimate strategy. When a CEO challenges me or challenges one of our marketers, we all need to be able to say, I'll die on the hill. Like I'm right because I thought of every permutation of the way that we could do this thing. And I think this is the best way. And maybe then the CEO says, but you don't think about this. You didn't think about this condition. And then maybe you have to, you know, kind of reconsider that. But generally speaking, you have to have the kind of the commitment to your own strategy because you've done the work to identify the right strategy and then push back on the executive. I think the executive, the way I see it, and this is the way a client told it to me. He's like, I want you because I want to have one throat to choke for all marketing.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to put it. You know,
like if something's wrong, it comes to me. And then for me, I got to go figure out what happens below me.
Oh, that's actually, well, it sounds kind of negative because it
sounds negative,
strangled. But at the end of the day, like a lot of business owners, like a lot of them are stuck in a lot of ways with the CMO because you say versus a fractional CMO, because a consultant you could just fire, you know, and it's no big deal. Contract cancel, maybe a longer term contract, but for the most part, doing that versus having to fire an actual executive is a much bigger deal. And so there's less risk. And it also allows you as the fractional CMO to be more bold. Like, no, you hired me for this. You signed a contract.
Get out of my way. Yeah. I mean, I've had conversations where I've said stuff like, I hear what you're asking me to do. I think it's the wrong idea. If you're really committed to it, I'll do it. But then let's have an honest conversation afterwards and we'll see what the results are. I might be wrong. And I want you to be open to learning as well. Like it's a level of respect and professionalism that I don't think most executives get spoken to as like, so you're coming there and you're being definitive and trustworthy because you're committed and you've earned it too, right? You're not giving some lame, hey, let's just spend $1,000 on Twitter ads, you know? You're coming up with a true robust strategy.
Because I'm sure you get like the knee jerk of the CEO, like, oh, I saw my competitor is using TikTok now, so I want to do TikTok today. You know, How do you
Why are we
kind of
running
deflect
TikTok?
that?
Not even I want to do it. Why aren't we?
Why aren't we?
It's like, because like I should have thought, yeah. But the answer is that the CMO, after you're working there for, I would say at least 3 months, you really have an evaluation of the whole business, and you know when it's time to run TikTok. You should know. You should know we're not going to run it this quarter, and probably not next quarter. I guess I mean, it's on my list to review for Q2 of next year.
I love that. Yeah.
Right?
So it's not a no, it's a yeah, of course we're going to address that. It's just happening.
But first,
Yes.
we have a churn issue. Second, we have a new customer sign-up issue. Third, our referrals are garbage. Let's fix that, and then let's dump more on the top, because TikTok is expensive if we want to scale it, right? So let's just fix I think of a business as a funnel,
Low
right?
end.
And then you just want to open the bottom. Like a lot of people say, let's increase the top, but increasing the top might not be possible in a market that has a limited addressable market. So if you're reaching out exclusively to Beverly Hills plastic surgeons, there's not a lot of them. So you can't grow that top. You can grow the bottom though, and that's going to make the business better. So I like to start at the bottom and work my way up generally.
Oh, that's huge. And you mentioned 3 months, because I think that is kind of the minimum time frame to understand a business, get the copy down, figure out a campaign. Like there's a lot that goes into that. Do you have like a minimum signing contract, or how's your actual arrangement work?
Yeah, so I recommend doing really 3 ways that you serve a client. One is what I would call like a traditional fractional CMO. So you're in 10-ish hours a week. And I don't know if anyone here hates logging hours, but I do. So I don't log hours. I just kind of, energetically know when that time's up. Some weeks you're going to work a little bit more. Some weeks you're going to work a little bit less. So that is kind of what I think is the traditional fractional CMO. And you'll have a monthly billing for that. I think it should go between 5,000 and 15,000 traditionally. And then the next level is what we call advisor. So advisor is working kind of as an advisor for the business. So it's every 2 weeks you lead a check-in. You do a quarterly planning, and every 2 weeks you do a check-in with the team. I think that's a $3,000 to $5,000 thing, but you can't sell that as a front end. So you have to do the third thing, which is a half-day consult. So if you're going to front end sell, you're going to sell 2 things in my eyes. One is 10 hours a week, you're in it. And the other one is a half-day consult. And then the half-day consult should, I would say 70% of the time, push into an ongoing advisor agreement.
Oh, excellent. Well, I like how you have those kind of tiers. We kind of teach the 90-day accelerator, and you're the fractional CMO for $3,500 a month. But like you said, you can't work 10 hours a week for $3,500 a month. The numbers don't necessarily add up unless they have the whole team, and you are working way less than that because they're executing a lot of the components. But let's talk about that just in terms of integrating your strategy with the existing marketing team. Is there usually a marketing team? I
would say the more confident the fractional CMO is, the bigger the client is that they're pitching. And the bigger that client is, the bigger the budget is, and they often have a team. So it's not uncommon for folks to come into our program and then sign a client that pays them $3,000 a month who doesn't have a team. And it's the CEO's also been the CMO. So now then they want to kind of step out of that CMO role. That can be okay. It also comes with a lot of constraints. Sometimes those constraints are exciting. Like, we have to do these things and you're limited on these tools, like be MacGyver and figure it out. I think that can be a fun challenge sometimes, but life's a whole lot different when you have $1 million a quarter to spend.
Oh yeah. Well, and just the resources, but I like how you kind of define the resources. Like, okay, so is that part of your, say, half-day cycle where you're like, okay, let's look at your team, let's look at your budget, and let's go through the numbers?
Yeah. I mean, it's a couple of things. One thing that I think is underappreciated is auditing the assets in the business. Like, so you're asking me to come in and grow your company. You have to lay out every single tool available to me. I'm going to bring in my tools. You guys bring in your tools, and then we're going to lay them out on the table. And then together we're going to come up with a strategy based on it. So I want to know, what PDFs have they created before? What special reports, what webinars have they done? Do they have any recordings of them at a recent trade show? I worked with someone a few years ago, and it was like the guy's old college roommate's wife was like the head of the board of the, what was it? It was like the professional association in the niche. So like, we got the list, right? It was just like one phone call. We got the whole mailing list. Like, those things are available if you squeeze enough for it. It opens you up to kind of kind of an untold opportunity, but you have to be able to ask the questions and really get those assets out. So yes, we do it in the first 30 days, come up with the whole strategy, 30 days to come up with a strategy, 60 days to champion their team to deploy it. And if they don't have a team, then you're working with whatever makes sense. Sometimes CMOs might have their own agency, which is okay. But if you do, I think you have to split them. It's Casey Stanton, the CMO, and then my agency. Like that's how you'd have to do it. And I would say that if you ever bring your agency in, you should also get an RFP from another agency or two, just so that it's honest and you're not kind of just feeding yourself. You know,
this is going to be very expensive.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I sign off on that proposal.
It's worth it though.
Yeah, right.
No, that's actually a huge tip though, where it's like, no, being honest and being realistic with the numbers. But I think a lot of times that businesses don't even know what they need. And they'll be like, oh yeah, well, you're just going to do all the graphics and you're going to do all the videos and you're going to do all the creatives and you're going to do all the copy.
Right. And you will, if there's no one else and there's no budget, you will do it all. Because if you've got pride in your work, you're not going to let the business flop, and you took a paycheck from them, right? So you're going to do what you got to do. But I think we've all been in companies too much where they have limited resources and you are their exclusive resource, regardless of what you call yourself. So my belief is that you should have a marketing technician. And I have like a job post I can share at the end of this. So it's like, get a marketing tech. The marketing tech steps into that business and it is a employee or a contractor of your client. You don't own them as part of your fractional CMO thing. You're installing that person, local person, maybe $20, $25 an hour type of person. And they're your person who's your connective tissue to anyone in the organization. So maybe you got marketing and then you've got sales and product and maybe like ops. That marketing tech is reaching out and creating all those relationships. So you're telling them what to do and then they go do the work. So as long as you can direct them effectively, that's helpful. That's your first hire. If you don't have a marketing tech available, you're the marketing tech. And you're doing $25 an hour work.
No, that's a huge point. Well, I like marketing tech versus saying the integrator or, somebody who is going to cost a ton of money.
There's a whole lesson here on over titling people. It's like, it's common to like start up your business and be like, oh, I'm going to hire my buddy and he's going to run operations. And I'm going to call him the COO. Yeah. And that guy like talks to his wife and Google, she Googles Glassdoor COO and realizes that the average salary is $150,000. And now, there's tension because you overtitled someone. So it's really important to title people correctly. Marketing tech, it doesn't exist. I created it for us, So $25 an hour, work from anywhere. Generally, and it depends on the company. Sometimes it's helpful to have that person in office, but oftentimes you can get them to work from home. And $25 an hour to work from home is a killer gig for some people.
Oh yeah. Especially if it's just sending emails, collecting stuff, like making sure deadlines are met and all that kind of stuff.
Dan Sullivan has a quote that's people quit when they run out of future. Right. And running out of future is like not going to happen when a marketing tech comes in at $25 an hour and you're building a team. If they're good, they're going to grow and you're going to move them up to a coordinator position or a director position in a couple of years. You're changing their life. You got to start somewhere. But I mean, there's a whole thing about like helping companies, but also what we do as fractional CMOs is we change the lives of the people that we work with.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, especially marketers, Yeah.
Yeah, it's immeasurable. I mean, you take a whole sales team who's been like, I love it when I find a salesperson who's an prospector, opener, and closer. Right? It's like, okay, cool. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the prospecting off your lap. And they're like, what? Right. So now they can spend their time closing and then they make their commission on closing. So they make more money. The company makes more money. And then you just go seat someone in the prospecting role, or you start running cold email campaigns, or, call booking Facebook ads, or whatever it is. You change people's lives in the organizations. Our CMOs, I hear from them, they say stuff like, people tell me that I'm the best thing that's happened to the team.
Wow.
That's powerful. A marketing director's wife said to me while I was on the phone with him, he was like, she got the phone and she's like, you're the reason we're on vacation. Wow. Because we have a rule that I'd like to instill, which is if you're on vacation, you put your phone in the microwave. Don't answer Slack, don't answer emails, no text messages. You're dead. You're dead for a week or 10 days or however long you're gone.
Yeah. Wow. And if they have your help, then they can make that happen. Otherwise it's holy crap, Black Friday is next week. Did we get banners up?
Exactly. Website got hacked. Yeah.
It was like, oh gosh, yeah. Well, or well, the vendors drop or whatever it is.
I've got one scary thing that just happened that no one's talking about. WordPress website got hacked. Happens, right? Everyone's kind of seen that happen. Then what do? You run security or WordFence and you clean it up. Google Search Console has their Google Safe browsing. So you go to a website that's been hacked and it has the red page of death that says this website has malware. There's a cache on that and a queue to get processed. So we identified a major website that got a ton of traffic, had malware. We're like, oh shit, we cleaned it up, security. We resubmitted. They said, no, you still have malware. We're like, oh my God. We were on WordFence, cleaned it up with WordFence. We're like, okay, now it's super clean. Devs went in it. We had the host at Kinsta go through it. Everything was super clean. We were confident. We resubmitted. 5 days later, Google processed that and removed the red screen of death.
Wow, 5 days.
Like,
whole week.
I never considered being offline for 5 days completely out of control. This is like your Facebook ad account getting locked for no good reason.
Yeah.
Which happens.
Well, actually, that brings up a good topic. How do you manage kind of the PR aspect of things going terribly wrong and reporting that to the owner or the board?
Yeah. Well, to the owner, I'm completely honest, right? Honest. And you don't say what's wrong. You just take a minute to figure out what's wrong, what the possible solutions are, and then what solution you're going to execute on. And you update them with that and you give them regular updates because those things happen. I mean, I'm working with a couple accounts and spending a lot on Facebook ads, and the account got shut down, and that's scary. And the business was at a standstill for a while. You just have to update everyone. With a malware, you have to update everyone. And do you update the customers? I think you reflect on the Streisand effect.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The Streisand effect is, if you guys don't know, it's when Barbara Streisand's house was photographed by like a soil erosion nonprofit or a government entity. And then there's a photo of like her big, beautiful house. And the photo had something like 47 views. Then she sued to get it taken down because she has like this opulent home and it looks like she's doing all this coastal erosion. And because of that, there was like 100 or 200,000 views within the next 24 hours. So like, if you keep that mental model in mind, do you want to draw attention? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. If it's about HIPAA data or any kind of private information, you have to disclose it, obviously, and you should do it quickly. But if it's something small, like the website's been down, you probably don't want to say, hey, everyone on my mailing list, if you're the 1% of people who went to my website, you might have noticed this malware thing. Now I'm letting everyone know that we have mediocre security. That's probably not worth it.
Well, especially if you're going to fix it in like 24 hours and then you just freaked everybody out. And you're like, you can inform afterwards maybe, but yeah, just be gentle with it,
Yeah, maybe bury it in like a annual update.
Yeah, there's our newsletter at the very bottom, like, all your information was stolen. No, don't say that.
Right. If information's stolen, you got to get ahead of that. But otherwise,
let's talk about capacity. So, you've kind of described the role of the fractional CMO. Just with what you're doing right now, like, what's a range of, companies you could work with at once?
I think 3 to 5 is a really good target. And you have kind of a dynamic of solve for time and solve for money. There's some other things there, solve for purpose, solve for relationship. But if you want to solve for time and solve for money, that's your back and forth. I'm either going to work more and make more, right? And then I'm going to work less, but keep my income the same. Then I'm going to work more and make more, and then I'm going to work less and keep my income the same. So I personally kind of can't handle the complexity of way too many relationships.
Mm-hmm. Too much going on.
Yeah, it's just, you're going to miss. You're going to, it's like dating too many people. You know what I mean? At the same time, it's like you're going to call someone the wrong name, and that's not going to be a good thing.
5's my limit.
What is it? How many?
I said 5's my limit.
5. Yeah, 5's a good number.
5's a good number. 1, 1 is hard enough.
1 is hard enough, right?
I think that's a great number because I did the same thing, and I think I kind of maxed out at like 3, but I was
3.
Too much of doing things, and I ended up doing way too much stuff, and then 2, 3, that was a lot of work. So I think 5 is solid if you have your stuff together.
Yeah, I think 5's good. But it's not 5 at 10 hours a week. I mean, I guess it could be. Yeah. But just heard from one of the guys that is in our accelerator, and he in 2 months brought in $60,000 in recurring revenue, and he's done it with 3 clients, and 2 of them are on rev share. Wow. So it's the rev share that's his kicker, which is pretty nuts. he's got a partner in it. But, I would rather make more from fewer clients, but have more than 2 clients. I think 2 is a dangerous number, because you have 2 clients, one covers your nut and the other one's you're spending money, if you lose one of them, it's scary. You lose 2 of them and you're screwed.
Yeah.
So having 3 to 5 is good.
Let's talk about that just in terms of ongoing prospecting, because you can't help to keep all of them all the time. I know you have your accelerator and you have the book, right? So is that kind of your lead magnet that's just kind of constantly turning?
Yeah, we're doing, so me specifically, I've just got 2 clients that I serve right now. Just clients that I've been working with for years. Love them, deep with them. Our mantra is like solve bigger problems, right? Got it on the mug. Just really love working with these bigger clients and having, big budgets, and it's a fun game for me. So I'm not eager to take on additional clients. We do have people come to us that we pass on to our members. We just had, some stuff that's happened recently, like, to tell you the landscape, the Norway's largest seafood company came to us and said, we want to hire one of your fractional CMOs because we want to get into the American market to sell our seafood. It's an interesting kind of global opportunity. They're the 4th largest seafood company in the world, Norway's largest.
Wow.
So companies like that are wanting a fractional CMO. And you think that's a lot of fish. Like they're very successful. They're making a lot of money. Why do they just want fractional? Why wouldn't they go full-time? It's just because they're being savvy. They just don't need a full-time right now. And also the labor market's a little tough for finding full-time talent.
Well, and I think it's a good trial basis too, because if you have somebody and you're like, hey, we could hire, this person for 200 a year, 300 a year versus, we're $1 billion company and that person's going to expect 5, plus bonuses and who knows what else.
Right.
Then it's a good tester. So you just find out like, oh no, didn't like that person. Moving on. No firing, no severance.
But also the fractional CMO is forced to be more effective. Man, there are so many executives, I'm sure that all of us have seen, that you could just like walk miles around. Like they're just not good at their job, but they have the confidence of the board, and they're like a tenured professor. It doesn't matter how terrible they are. They're just kind of in it. With those types of people, like the fractional CMO has to come in and outperform in less time. And we can do that by being much more numbers focused. What's your bogey? Does the company have 1, 2, or 3, let's say up to 5 KPIs that are the most important for the quarter and for the year? Do you know what it is? And if you slice the year down to 4 quarters, and do you know, is it linear? Is it 1,000 customers, so it's 250 a quarter? Or is it 100 the first quarter, 200 the next quarter, 300 the next quarter, and then whatever the balance is there, 600 the final quarter? Like, is that the path? It depends on the business. And the fractional CMO has limited time. And I think with that constraint, it's Parkinson's law. Work fills the time allotted. I got 10 hours to kick some ass. I'm not going to waste my time on bullshit meetings I don't need to be on. I'll say, send me an email. I got to go do this other stuff, or I'm just not around to help you. And then when you're in your laser focused, you're on top of it, you blow it up, and then you step back.
I love that. That's a great tip right there. Michelle.
Yeah, so we have a question in chat. For new clients who may not know what they need, how do you determine the duration of the contract? Is there a minimum or a maximum?
Yeah, good question. So ultimately, I think some, and I'm not saying, Mohammed, that this is your position, but I hear people say this a lot. It's almost as if they feel like they have to trick someone into paying them, right? Like I have to sell them. I have to say the right thing. And I think that positioning is like a chasing positioning. It's like a supplicating positioning. It's like, I need the money, please, please, please. And it's just bad energy, and companies pick up on that. They don't want that. So what you're aiming to do in your sales process is identify if they need you, and if they need you, what needs do they have? Do they need you for 10 hours a week? Do they need you for a half-day consult? Do they need you kind of like a light ongoing thing? Do they want to start heavy for 6 months and then maybe kind of scale back and maybe keep you around for years? Do they need you for 30 days because they're going to be insolvent and like they just like need capital as quickly as possible? Is it a turnaround? Are they preparing to sell the business? Are they lifestyling the business? Like, what is it? you're coming in on the executive level. Here's like a great hack. I ask the executives in like a first meeting and then continually through the first 3 months to write down their confidence robber. What's just robbing you of your confidence? I don't know if I can help you. Just tell me everything that's robbing you of your confidence. Just write them all down. Just get them out. You're laying in bed at night and you can't sleep. Just write it down and I'm going to ask you about it and just tell me what they are. I probably can't help with everything, but maybe there's a thing here and there that I could help with. So you start hearing and then you're like, oh, you know what you need is a assistant. I know someone who does assistant, so I'll introduce you. I don't know if it'll be a fit or not, but it's a start. So that's kind of the way that you're troubleshooting and serving them. So I start off by saying, I want a clear commitment from you because I'm going to give you a commitment. And I want that for 90 days. It's either a half day. Okay. So it's a half day consult, which is a half day consult with nothing else afterwards, but you're going to upsell on the back end, that advisor, or it's 3 months of what we call engaged. That's the minimum contract. So that half day consult, depending on your comfort and the value that you think you can provide and where the company is in their margins, you're going to charge $5,000 to $15,000 for that half day. And then that's it. And then afterwards, you're going to charge $3,000 to $5,000 recurring if they bite on that. But it's a 6-month commitment. At the end of that half day, you're going to present your whole strategy to them that you came up with. Now, it's not an exhaustive strategy. You only had a half day with them and some prep time, but it's like pretty good. And then they're going to be like, wow, Mohammed, you rock. We can't do this without you. And you're going to be like, great. So I can actually serve you and support you ongoing for about half the cost of what you paid today every month. Wow. And for them, it's like, oh my God, I thought you were going to be 10 grand a month, but really you're only 3 grand a month or 5 grand a month. So then they're going to bite on that. So then that's 6 months, or you get really in and heavy with them. And that's a 3-month commitment. Over time, as you start stacking and getting your revenue, I think up past $20,000 a month, that's when I think you start increasing your contract terms. And this is a whole idea of like, you want to put yourself in a financial position where you can scare off customers that aren't a great fit. So this is where you can start swinging. You start raising your rates. You know, I raised my rates one time when I had someone call me and say, hey, we want to hire you. And I was like, I'm full up on business. I hit my financial goals. I'm all set. And they're like, but we want to hire you, you know? I talked to my wife and I was like, all right, if I do this, I'm going to be working a lot more. I'm just going to swing and do a 50% increase in my prices. And she's like, do it. So I got back on the phone and I was like, here's my price, 15 or 50% up. And they're like, can you start tomorrow? Ooh, like no price objection. And if they would have said no, I would have been fine too. Right? No, I wouldn't have gone back down to.
Well, that's that confidence position that you put yourself in, you know, at the very start. Because if you are saying like, oh, well, you know what, I usually do 3 months, but for you, I'll do 30 days and we'll see how it goes. And then we'll revisit it. And it's like, you just set yourself up for getting fired in 30 days.
Yeah. And there's no consistency in the income. 30 days of a well-paid income, it's luck. That's not a lifestyle. And this is why I like my number. Say again?
It's not a business.
It's not a business. Yeah. But Drucker says the point of a business is to get and keep a customer. The keeping part is really important because your acquisition cost is there. I'm also I never believe in discounting. I don't discount my rates. I learned that from Joe Polish. He said, I'm free or I'm full priced.
Oh, that's great.
Right? And it's not free for you. You know, it's free for the nonprofit down the street.
And I'm all out of free.
Right. But I like that. You're not discounting. Maybe with a nonprofit, you throw them a $500 discount on the first month because they're a nonprofit. But otherwise, no discounts. Ever.
No. I think that, well, not negotiable. I mean, I think if you really sit down and you're intentional about like, here's what it's going to be, and here's how much I need to make to really focus on this. Because I think what happens too when you discount is you start sacrificing or treating that person like they're a discount, you know, that client. You're like, they're getting half off, so I'm not going to do as much as I usually do because this person over here is paying me full price and this jerk didn't. So there you go.
You can't, I mean, the idea that you have to empty your cup before you can fill it. So if you got like a bunch of piker clients, you know, that aren't paying you the full rate, and then you have someone who's like a dream client, you just can't take them on because you don't have the space for it. You also don't have the hunger for it because you're exhausted from working for all these discount clients. I'd rather make less money and feel the burn of that and then go win the client at the rate that I should than, you know, just limp along with $2,500 here. And, you know, like that just feels too busy.
Well, it's taking orders. You know, you don't want to be an order taker. You're a professional. You're an executive level. Like, you don't have to do that anymore. And I think there is something to be said, when you do charge more, then you'll get different clients too. Because if you say you went to your $1.5 billion equity firm and we're like, you know what, I'll do it for $3,000 a month, then they're going to be like, we need somebody real. Like,
Yeah, there's a quote
sorry.
that I wrote down when I got started in this stuff, and it was like from Deloitte, which was, to paraphrase, it was something like, you have to charge the price at which the people think the problem costs to solve.
Complicated quote, but
Say again?
I said complicated quote.
Complicated quote, yeah. But like, you got to be priced appropriately. And if you're paid well for it, I mean, I used to run into roadblocks with clients and be like, I don't know what to do. And I'd call my whole network and be like, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? Right? Pay for courses, go to events, pay for mentorship to learn this stuff, because I knew that I was their trusted advisor and I had to solve the problem. And it was okay that I didn't know the answer today, but I had to work really hard to solve that problem. So it's completely acceptable to go work with a client and know what you're going to do for the first 30 days. Like, no one can predict the future, but they can know what the right next step is. And the next right step might be like, invest in themselves, or hire a consultant, or, whatever it is. And there's like a bigger thing at play here, which is the fractional CMO is not an expert in everything. They're an expert in leading a team to hit outcomes. That's really the number one thing, is the leadership. Beyond that, I'm working with a team right now, and they're not good on LinkedIn, and we want to get on LinkedIn, right? Personally, I don't have a lot of experience on LinkedIn. Some ads there, I find the ads to be very cost prohibitive. It's just like a tough market to get into. I'm sure some people have got it figured out. So what do? Well, we set the bogey on what we have to get on a cost per lead and a cost per, like a CPA. And then we try our own campaign and see how far we get. And then we go hire the best in the business as a consultant to tell us what to do differently. So that's going to cost us what? 10 grand? And you get the right answer. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. You get these experts. A model for everyone to take away is the $200 trick. Everyone will spend an hour with you for $200. Right? You just like reach out to someone who's in a role at a company, be like, hey, I really love what you do. I think you're really killer at it. Can I give you $200 and just ask you some questions on a Zoom call? I won't record it. I just want to like figure this out and see if you can help me get a jump start. And if they're not like the business owner, they're going to be like, hell yeah, let's do it on my lunch hour. And they make $200. You Venmo it to them before the call, and you get all your questions answered, and you win.
I love that tip. That's huge.
There's a cool site, intro.co, I think. And it's one of these like top executives. Alexis Ohanian's there, from the co-founder of Reddit, married to Serena Williams. Like, you can go like buy these people's time for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. One of the Andreessen Horowitz guys, Andrew Chen, they're not cheap. Might be $1,000 for 15 minutes, but what would you do with 15 minutes? And what if you just had $1,000 a quarter budget? So you go talk to these big players who sold, their startup for $1 billion or whatever, and you just go, hey, can I get like 15 on your calendar? You stack your questions, and then you get all the answers. It's a life hack.
Oh yeah. Well, and how much time would you save by doing that versus trying to figure it out, try it, experiment, fail, try it again, and then this person could be like, oh no, that will never work. Like, don't do that. And you're like, oh, I just saved myself like a year. That could happen. I did that. Actually, I hired a consultant when I was at a education technology company, and we were trying to figure out how to break into the, government education market. And I just had a list of questions, met with him for like half a day. And I think it was like $10,000-$15,000, but it saved us all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't need to hire anybody. Like, I just got all the answers. Like, this is amazing. It's incredible.
And $10,000-$15,000 sounds like a lot for the hourly rate, but for the save time, it's amazing.
No, it's huge. And then after that, actually, what was funny is I tapped him out on stuff he knew, because I had planned it out so well. Then I was like, oh, well, you don't have anything else you can tell me. This is great. I don't need to, And
if you take that same model and apply it to the fractional CMO, it works, because like in SEO, we all know that like SEO is based on what? Like site structure, content, backlinks. Like, it's kind of, that's like the trio. All right. So you get an operator, you get a good writer, you get a decent tech person who can build out the right schemas. And then you get someone to support you with backlink outreach or whatever. Okay. Well, you're going to build the company, the SEO profile as far as you can go. And then what do? You need the next big idea. So you go on Upwork and find the guy who's $200 an hour and get an hour of his time and ask him all the questions, and he gives you all the answers. And then 6 months later, you do it again. So now you're out $400 in the year, but you got the best strategy and you gave it to your team, and now they're growing and they're building up the foundation of the marketing department. And you're just like, I mean, you're building a bigger future for these internal marketing folks because they're getting expertise from top people. They feel really smart. They're like, oh, that makes so much sense. They own the outcome and they have the resource to get that outcome met. So they're growing. Everyone's winning. It becomes like order taking is a top-down established kind of virus in a business, right? I want outcomes for each person, and then I want to give them a timeline and a budget, and I want to also provide a constraint. Like, hey, I want $10,000. Cool, I'll give you 6, right? Or like, okay, I can do it in 12 weeks. Cool, I want it done in 4. Right? I'm going to give them a constraint to force the creativity, but I'm going to give them the things that are possible to make it happen. And then they're going to make it happen. They're going to grow. They're going to love it. They're going to love their job. It just builds this dynamic of teamwork, of ownership, of outcomes. And then there's this, okay, I love this stuff. How do you bonus people? I think is super important. If everyone in an organization, a traditional organization, has like a 10% bonus, let's say an annual 10% bonus, kind of traditional, right? How do they get it? Every quarter, they're evaluated on 3 things. Did they hit their outcomes? Did the marketing team hit their outcomes? And did the company hit their outcomes? 35, 35, 30%. So if you hit your personal outcomes and the marketing department hit their outcomes, but the company failed to hit their outcomes, you still get 70% of your bonus. If the company did great, you did great, but the team didn't do good, you get 65% of your bonus. So then every week when you're on these calls with everybody, you're saying, I'm off track. And everyone's hearing, I'm not getting my bonus. Right? I'm going to lose out on 35% of my bonus because you're off track, Mark. Dude, can we chat? How can I help you? I've got some extra time on Friday. Do you want to meet? Right? Everyone jumps in and supports one another because they're financially incentivized too.
I love that. That's a huge tip right there.
Huge.
Now, quick question before I forget. When you talked about, say, you didn't know LinkedIn, and so did you hire? Was it you hiring the LinkedIn firm to do the ad campaign, or did you assign it to the client?
Yeah, delegate it. Yeah. So as you grow, so we have 2 mantras. One is solve bigger problems, right? Because small problems deserve small rewards. So spend your time solving the big stuff. And the other one is delegate everything except leadership. So I see the problem. We want to get on LinkedIn. I also see that the ad team doesn't have any experience on LinkedIn, but they're a trustworthy, hardworking team, so they can figure it out. So I'm like, I want to get on LinkedIn. This is the bogey that you have to beat for cost per lead or CPA. And I want you guys to get a campaign started, run it. You got a $5,000 budget. Once you get to it, let's pull in an expert, and I want them to poke holes in your strategy and show you how to make it better. I want you to find that expert.
Ooh.
And they're like, okay,
that's
you got
awesome
it.
Tip.
And if they don't, you fire them. Right? Like if people aren't willing to grow, they just don't have space on your team. I mean, that's a whole thing. Every month you should be reviewing your team members if they hit your core values or not. EOS has got a great approach, which is GWC. Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have capacity? And if they do, then they stick around. And if they don't, you coach them. And if they get 3 strikes, then they know that they're out because they're not a good fit.
Oh yeah.
It's very open and honest and transparent.
Well, we have a whole matrix that's scalable for rating your employees and saying, okay, how's their philosophy with business? Are they with the principles? And then what's their was it mood? And yeah, there's the third one, but
energy matters.
It's a big deal. Well, and it's not the people you think of that will be the problems, is what the chart actually ends up showing, because the it's just an XY chart, but the people in certain areas will be the problem areas and you don't think they are. And so super interesting. But
yeah, totally.
Before I like, they leave and then they come back and then they still claim 9-year anniversaries when it's actually like 6-month anniversary.
Doesn't reset.
It does not reset. I got all my PTO back. HR did well.
That was your reward. There's your 9-year anniversary gift.
We were on a break.
We were on a break. That was before me. I had nothing to do with that. Well, I think I sucked up all the time Does anybody have any questions for Casey? I know we, if we have certified partners here, ask Casey. He's been around the block with all fractional CMO issues. There we go. Oh, Muhammad again. Let's see. Question about marketing technician. I love the idea of having someone keep you out of the weeds and let you stay focused on leads. Do you have a go-to place to find them?
Yeah. So the first question, Mohammed, is do they need to be local to the business or can they be remote? That's the first question. If they have to be local to the business, it can be tough. I work with a team that has a big labor pool in Long Island. And like, that's an island, you're kind of limited. It's a struggle sometimes to find quality people. I prefer to do it remote because I'm going to work remote. I'm not going to show up in the office, This is my house that I'm in. So I feel like that's the first question. And then after that, so if it's local, you find it in the local places, wherever that is. It depends on the role. There's some places that I like to post. So one is not Fiverr, Acadium, Acadium. They might have changed it. It might redirect to a new name. I think they might have changed it, but maybe I'm wrong. Actually, I hired a guy on my team from them. And their whole thing was get a marketing intern for 6 weeks for free. And then they want a job rec or an offer to join your team. So I did it with a guy. He blew me away. He joined the team. He's now my sales guy. It's amazing. Huh. He's in London, right? I love it. I love the kind of dynamic of having a guy from London take sales calls,
That is cool.
Yeah.
Get more sales right off the bat.
Yeah. They're like, people are like, yeah, I talked to that guy in Oxford. I was like, John in London. Yeah. So Acadium's cool. I like, maybe this is just because I'm a Redditor, but Reddit for hire. It's interesting. People that are there you can review their history. You can see their profile and then look at their history. So you can see what they're into. Like, are they a kind person? I think is really helpful. Are they into cool stuff? I like people that are passionate. I would prefer to hire someone who was like a deep nerd in anything. I'm into knitting. I'm into raising scorpions in my garage. Like whatever the thing is, just an interesting person. I like people that are passionate, that aren't just kind of, brain dead Netflixers.
Casual hobbyists.
Yeah.
Actually, even if you have a hobby, it puts you above quite a few people, surprisingly.
I think a lot of people. Yeah. Yeah. Like a hobby and a headboard. Right? Those are two things. A lot of people like, right, the mattress on the floor, like, life decisions. You kind of question them.
Hey, minimalist, there's a Reddit for that.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So I like those places. You can also mail your audience. That's a fun place too. And also, Mohammed, like you pick people up along the way, right? Like if you're a charismatic leader and you're really helping them, and people that work under your leadership become more successful, make more money, have more fun. Their friends know about you, right? Like if that happens, you start getting people that fall into your lap. And then you're just like in this fun position of like, just like placing. You're like, oh, I've got this person. Oh, that's cool. You have this experience, huh? Where could I use you? And you can kind of start moving them around. But if I had to if I had to hire right now, you could go with Indeed as well. I think of my company, my team, all the people I know were through Reddit and Acadium and Upwork. Upwork's a great one too if you want someone remote. Remember with Upwork so the guy that I hired, he's like my tech guy. Love him to death. He's in India. So sweet. He was working with a company in California, and then that company was in like the real estate market. And then I don't know, 3 years ago, the real estate market turned or whatever. And he was out of a job kind of overnight, and he went on Upwork, and then my post was up. I had a post up the week before, and he still had his job. So he didn't apply. He didn't even look at it. It's like he had a life event that caused him to get on. There's the Upworkers that are like on there that are billing all the time, but then there's the ones that go on and say, I'm looking for full-time. So keep posting. I got a financial analyst from Upwork. Love him to death. Like the sweetest dude. So those are fun too. If you're willing to have a remote team, I think it's better. I think you have a little cash arbitrage too. That can be a little lower cost of living. And yeah. So given the options, I think those are the ones.
No, and here we use Upwork a lot. And then If anybody didn't notice, I actually use our podcast as a qualifier for finding SMEs for our courses. So
Oh, interesting.
literally, if you're on the podcast, it's a qualification session. And that's when, if it goes well, then it's like, hey, let's do more stuff. Except with you, Casey, because you're completely qualified and I just dropped the ball all over the place. Like, we're going to do stuff. It happens, but yeah, we're going to get you way more involved now that we got you back
Cool.
in the mix.
Hey, hit me with a hard one. Anyone got a hardball question for me? Maybe it's like sticky with a client. I love that stuff. I love it when you got to like fight a client.
Let's go into that. What do you do with the uncooperative? Because I dealt with this as an executive where I had an uncooperative creative team. And they had their own ideas, they had their own mission, and it was completely separate from the company. And it just led to a lot of conflict. So what do you do with creatives that are out of control?
Yeah. So ask the executive what the outcome is, and then hold everyone to an outcome. So the executive, you say, what do you want? And the executive's like, I want the company to grow. And you're like, yeah, but what does that mean? Do you want to increase the EBITDA? Like profitability is really important to consider. Some people say stuff like, I want to double the company. Really what they're saying is, I want to take home twice as much money.
Yes.
Do you as a marketer want to double a $10 million company, or do you want to free up an extra $300,000? What's easier, right? $300,000, couple of digital products, like you got it. Like you can find that money. So first identify the actual problem that you're solving. And then everyone has an outcome, and people have a quarter in my eyes. And I think Scalable is similar in this idea. You're going to give people the time and the space to have an outcome. And you track the measurable on that outcome. And if they hit it, awesome. I'm thrilled. And if they don't hit it, well, like, that's not good. And they need to be honest every single week or every other week, depending on your engagement with them, on their status. And if they say on track for 11 weeks, and on the 11th week, they're like off track, won't hit it. Or on the 12th week, they just don't deliver. That's someone who doesn't have the awareness of their production. And how do you trust them? So those people, to me, you just start choking them out. Maybe they have a contract, you start kind of turning it down, that kind of stuff.
No, that's a great way to handle it. Non-combative and just, results oriented is a good way to go. Let's see. Well, last question.
And also, I don't care about the time that they spend. Maybe that's not like something to like say to the people that you're managing, right? But like, I don't care if you work until 6 o'clock every day. I don't care.
Oh, that's a good point.
I care that you have the outcome, because I know if I get all these outcomes complete by the end of the quarter, you win and I win, and the company wins. Could I really focus on getting every ounce of effort out of you? Yeah, I could. But like, I get these new hires and they say stuff to me like, hey, I got a doctor's appointment on Friday. Is that okay? It's like, what do you mean, is it okay? Are you going to hit your outcomes? Then it's fine. Like, go to your doctor's appointment. Like, you don't have to ask me to go to the bathroom, right? If you're ahead of schedule, great. You should be telling, if you're a fractional CMO, your whole mantra last week and this week is you should be more than 50% done with your quarter's outcomes. That's where you got to be. And if you're not, remember that your vendors are going to start chilling out next week. Get on top of them. Get on the phone with them today and ensure that you have your deadlines covered, because they're going to start flaking. That's your ownership. You can't get to the end of, let's say this is November 18th. You can't get to like December 26th. What'll that be, a Monday? You can't get to that last week of December and be like, well, the vendor, they had all this vacation and all this other stuff. It's like, okay, but you didn't tell me that, and you didn't ask for additional money or creativity to solve the problem. It's unacceptable to miss your outcome. So as long as everyone hits their outcome, it's great.
No, that's a great tip. Let's see. It's 12. We'll do this one last one. Just quick answer for Mickey. When moving into the fractional CMO model, did you transition any existing clients into the new framework? If so, how did that work?
So I was at an agency and I was doing this kind of consulting work. And the agency would take their percentages. So they took like 55% of the sale that I prospected, sold, collected, and serviced, because they were the agency. I was underneath their title. So instantly leaving the agency and getting it myself, I got 100%, which means I doubled my income. So that's how it started. I didn't take anyone from the agency with me. Mickey, is there a specific, like, give me a use case? Are you working with them right now in your agency model?
No, so I don't run an agency. I run a consultancy, and I was just curious because I did have some clients transition from my former agency into consulting. And just trying to have that conversation was a little bit of a challenge at the time. And I was just wondering if there were any kind of tips or things that we can do to make that transition better for anyone who is planning on moving.
Yeah. So I can think of a CMO that I coached who was the CMO of a top organization in the information publishing space. CMO, he took the company from 2 million to 18 million in like 3 years. Pretty sizable. And he made like $220,000 a year, which is a good income, but like 2 to 18 million is like kind of nutso, right? He didn't get a piece of that. He didn't have any points in that. So he came to me and said, I want to become a fractional CMO. Can you coach me on it? And the first thing we did was reposition his offer, and he repitched his client so that they would pay him like 70% of his income, but he was working 10 hours instead of 50. So that transition, they still had him. Are they going to keep him forever? Are they going to want a full-time? Maybe. But he was like, I'm leaving you unless you take me up on this offer. They're like, okay. And then he built up his other book of business. He freed up all his time. Lifestyle is a whole thing that we didn't even discuss. You have the opportunity to have the life that you want as a fractional CMO in a way that doesn't exist anywhere else. I think it is simply the easiest way to build a business where you're making a 1% income. If you want to do an agency and do $1 million a year, you can do it, and you're going to have a lot of costs. But if you want to be a fractional CMO, you can easily, I think, let's say over the course of 2 years, if you're just focused, you can build it to $500,000 a year. I think that could be your take home, right? Pre-tax.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fantastic. I'm going to let Michelle wrap it up. But Casey, this has been great. And we're definitely going to see you more often because
I'd love it.
I'm going to do better.
And Michelle, I've got my book. I'd love to give everyone a copy of it. I'll grab, I got an EPUB and an Audible version of it, or audiobook version of it. So Michelle, I'll send you an email with the link to it. Oh,
Perfect.
that's about it. Gabriel, thanks. Amazon thanks you for that. I think I made about 6 cents on that sale. So yeah, I'll pass the book over to you guys.
Yes, I'll get that out to everybody who reaches out to me, and of course to our certified partners. And as a note for certified partners, if you are one, you get this recording inside of your Academy portal. In case you hadn't noticed, all of these calls are now inside of the Academy portal, nicely organized just for you to rewatch. But thank you again, Casey, for hopping on today. This was a lot of fun, and I think you brought a really great perspective as someone who has been doing this like for a while, so I really appreciate that. Partners, if you want to get Casey's book, let me know. Otherwise, thank you everyone for a fantastic call, and I will see y'all again next week.
Great. See y'all. Take care.
See ya.